It's Sunday, February 15, 2026. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Weekend Show, where we make the time to consider the news of the week. You can support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5Minute News. Our guest today spent 25 years working as a salesman in the firearms industry. He left his position in 2020 and published a memoir, Gunfight, criticizing radicalization in that same industry. He was the Democratic candidate for Montana governor in 2024 and is now running for Congress in Montana against Republican Representative Ryan Zinke. Ryan Busse, welcome back to the Weekend Show.
Hey, it's good to see you again. Wish like we said in the lead up here, wish the times were brighter than they are, but it's good to see you, and I'm happy to chat.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're here. The world has changed quite a bit, kind of led by the shift in politics in the United States since you and I last spoke, Ryan. Not least the kind of authoritarian takeover of the American government, withdrawal from treaties all around the world, and it has meant that foreign nations are now scrambling to kind of reshape the world order just for some safety and security without the United States. People often say, what can we do and how can we help? You have stepped up. Just tell us about your journey quickly from obviously being a firearms salesman to writing the book, then running for governor, and now for Congress.
Well, I'm going to get back to that in just a second. As far as what can people do, I'm a firm believer that this 2026 election will essentially be the hinge point of American democracy. And so if you're somebody who cares about putting America back on a solid footing, I hope you'll help in any way you can with this election. I grew up on a farm and ranch. I graduated with 16 kids. I loved to hunt and fish. So I thought getting into the gun business for me was like a dream job. It was like a kid who played baseball making it to the major leagues, And so I spent 25 years there, was an executive, helped build up one of the largest firearms companies in the industry. And I'm proud of that. I still hunt and shoot with my kids. I own lots of guns that I help design and sell. That is a point of pride for me. But along the way, I saw the industry fomenting radicalization that I now see like in the streets of Minneapolis. But I was really worried about that. I wrote a book about that, about how the forces inside the industry, like the NRA, were fomenting this right-wing radicalization. It frightened me. I left. I did something no career coach would tell you to do. I left my career at the apex of my earning years, 50 years old. And since then, I've been trying to make the world a better place. I ran for governor, and I'm running against Ryan Zinke here now in this House race. And we've got an awesome chance of beating him because, as it turns out, a bunch of these policies that they've laid over the top of people just aren't very popular. So we feel good about this one.
And he got caught up in a bunch of corruption of his own, didn't he? I mean, he served in Trump's first presidency.
So I have to tell you, this guy is, in some ways, it's commendable what he's done because he has accomplished a level of corruption that I did not think was possible. In other words, he was fired from a Trump administration for being too corrupt. That sounds odd now because that's like a 14-time Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
Actually, he's an 18-time offender. Just during his time as the Interior Secretary, he had 18 official ethics investigations against him, and eventually he was fired from the Trump administration. One little interesting aside for all of you, it wasn't too long, just a week ago, everybody was watching the Super Bowl. And you notice during the halftime show, Bad Bunny, during this halftime show, you see a bunch of electrical lines in the Bad Bunny show. Well, those relate right back to Ryan Zinke and one of his big corruption things. 2017, when he was the Secretary of Interior, one of the largest hurricanes on record, Hurricane Maria, hits Puerto Rico. It wipes out the electrical grid. Ryan Zinke decides to award the contract to rebuild the electrical grid to a guy who lives 20 miles north of here, a dude who has no experience building electrical grids, $300 million contract. It doesn't get done right. Zinke gets insanely wealthy somehow. Gosh, who knows how that happened. And fast forward to that Super Bowl show, Bad Bunny is still pissed off about the fact that there's not sufficient electoral grid in Puerto Rico, and it all relates back to Ryan Zinke, the guy I'm running against.
It is remarkable, isn't it? And of course now there are Republicans calling for the investigation of Bad Bunny's performance, saying that there was all sorts of language and the stuff they didn't understand because it was in Spanish, of course. But they're trying to get the FCC involved, and there is definitely pushback there. But that can't hide the reality, as you describe, of not just that what went on in Puerto Rico, but we see this level of corruption all over. And as climate change takes hold, there are more extreme weather events. And often, whether it's PG&E or, any of these companies that themselves fail to invest in infrastructure, and the knock-on effect is that people are left without power for days, weeks, or even months.
Yeah, we're going to be living with the ramifications of, this Trump administration wants to disavow science. They've announced that somehow they're going to, it's as if they're going to outlaw gravity, right? They announced that they're going to, they say that CO2 is no longer a pollutant and doesn't cause global climate change. They just announced this. Yes. It would be just as if they announced that gravity doesn't pull down on objects, that Isaac Newton was somehow completely out in left field. They think, but science doesn't care. The warming is going to continue. I don't care how many coal awards. Trump literally got a coal award, like the most valuable player for the coal industry.
Yeah.
None of that will erase what science is going to do, what is actually going to happen. And so these hurricanes like Maria that hit Puerto Rico or whatever I'm talking to you from Montana right now, Western Montana, we've had by far, not even on the scale of measurability, the warmest, strangest winter on record. You talked about our international neighbors. I live 50 miles from Canada. Newsflash, my Canadian friends are not coming across the border to visit Canada anymore. Who would have guessed that insulting them, threatening to take over their country, terrifying the hell out of them for no reason would encourage them to give us the big maple leaf middle finger, but that's exactly what they're doing, and I don't blame them because this stuff is insane. But to the weather point here, it's insane here because the climate change is obviously, our grass is green, and it's February in Montana. Never seen it before. So, there have been many days have been above 60 degrees. That never happens here. Literally like never happens. So it's frightening what's coming down the pike.
How, when you talk to local people, when you're campaigning, because in my experience in the US, climate change and the climate crisis is a bit of kind of moot point. People don't really have their head for it. They're worried about other stuff. They think it's somebody else's problem. Meanwhile, in my experience from Europe, everyone's talking about it. It forms a major part of the economy. And people take it very seriously because they respect scientific consensus. But when you talk to people, do you find that actually they do respond to conversations about climate change and how serious it really is?
Depends on, and this is one of those things that has become politically divisive, partisan, on the right, there are actually some components of climate change and clean energy policy that the Trump administration has either rolled back or wrought that are talked about. Now, they're not framed in climate change issues, but for instance, the cheapest form, the most cost-effective form of new energy now are renewables. The cheapest thing is solar and wind. It's just way cheaper to put that stuff on the grid. So we're in a place like everywhere else that power prices are important to people because working people can't afford to live in the towns that they service. And so any cost increase is noted very quickly. And power is a big cost for any working family, anybody. And so when you take the cleanest form of energy off the grid, or you essentially make it inoperable, or you remove all the incentives for it, people realize that because their power prices are going up. And they don't like it. Now, I don't think you're going to get on the right in Republican circles a day's worth of discussion on the morality of climate change, whereas you probably would on the left. My two sons were litigants in the Held versus Montana climate case, the youth climate case where the kids successfully sued the state of Montana here. That's the first in the world where youth stood up and fought for their climate rights. We have an enumerated right to clean and healthful environment in the Montana Constitution. It's one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. It literally says everybody has the right to a clean and healthful environment. And our kids sued over that, saying that energy policy in the state was violating the right to a clean and healthful environment. So it's top of mind for a lot of people, but the frames about how it's discussed, right versus left, are a little different.
And so when it comes to campaigning, how high up the agenda is it for you? Is it an issue that people are going to vote for you on? Or what are your priorities?
Some will probably vote on that, but I think you're right to suspect that the priorities of most people are what's right in front of them right now. And that is, cost of housing. This is the least affordable state in the union, in all 50 states. It's worse than California. Our median income is $39,400. Our average home price is about $600,000. You could do the math real quick. None of that works. So if you're if you're a working person making less than about $170,000, if you're a 35-year-old, if you're a 21-year-old kid like my son Lander, you ain't buying a house. And it has people rightfully angry. Meanwhile, we have this huge disparity of wealth where we have the Yellowstone Club here, which is, there's a $150 million house in there. There's $40 million houses. These folks come here for a week or two a year. Meanwhile, all the people who live in town, cops and teachers and mechanics, they can't even live in the town they service. And so it's got people very angsty. Healthcare is huge. I haven't talked to a single audience, Republican or Democrat. They're just on a knife's edge about healthcare costs. And there again, you, as a European, our neighbor to the north, Canada, like we're only, the U.S. is only 25 years, 30 years, 40 years behind on universal healthcare. I'm campaigning hard that we have to have Democratic champions for universal healthcare. It's really, really top of mind. And to be fair, public lands and conservation issues, which are a huge thing in Montana, both from a quality of life, but also from an economy standpoint, because so much of our economy is based on public lands, rivers, mountains. Glacier National Park is 30 miles away from here. Our former governor, Steve Bullock, used to say they ain't moving here for our Walmarts. So, public lands are a big deal. So those are basically the three buckets that I think are really important to people.
Your opponent, Ryan Zinke, has won 4 elections.
Yeah.
What is it, just to get into the kind of psychology of, we know that these Republican Congress people lie about what they have to offer. We've heard it certainly with Donald Trump over cost of living and energy bills and lying about gas prices and everything. I mean, at what point after winning 4 elections are people going to go, okay, this hasn't worked out for me yet? Because, the rhetoric is all very well, and he's very good at raising money, isn't he? And tragically, we know that's often what wins elections here. But it will eventually come down to the price at the pump or the price in the grocery store.
I will tell you this. People ask me a lot, especially dispirited Democrats who think maybe we're never going to win anything again, right? People get dispirited awful fast. They give up too fast. But what's different now is the lived experience of Republican and independent voters in the last 18 months, honestly, has been shitty. It's not good. A lot of people sincerely believed that their healthcare situation was going to get better. I didn't believe Donald Trump was going to do that, but people, especially casual voters, thought it's going to get better. Importantly, Republican voters, they may not call the solution that they want some government name. They may not call it Medicare for all, but they are done with what's going on now. They are done with worrying about ACA prices, healthcare subsidy prices going through the roof, which Zinke voted for twice, voted to kill those subsidies twice. And about 77,000 Montana families depend on the ACA. My point here is that these lived experiences of people are not good. Tariffs here are killing this economy. 18 to 20% of our economy is Canadian visitorship, and it's gone. I mean, Canadians are not coming here. So if you have a business that's based on tourism, which most Western Montana businesses are in some way, they're hurting. Tariffs have caused all the grocery prices to go up. I could go on and on here, but the lived experiences of people are different now, and they're ready for a change. They're also ready. They're not so much ready to disavow their vote for Trump. They view that as a binary choice that they would probably make again, right? They didn't like Kamala Harris. There's no reason having that discussion. Trump's not on the ballot. Zinke is on the ballot. The House majority is on the ballot, and these voters are ready to penalize him for these bad policies that are hurting them.
Let's talk about another concern of voters, and that's election subversion, because Trump is currently, the SAVE Act just got passed in the House. This is all part of Trump's campaign to undermine future elections, including the midterms. and this bid to sweep up voter rolls across the nation, which began last spring and is now in the courts. I mean, this is very, very serious. Is it because they know that with their current policies that they can't win and they simply have to cheat? And what evidence is there of this where you are?
I think two things here. If you talk to a lot of Republican voters, the voters themselves, because they've been so, especially Fox News, which is about 40% of news viewership or news consumption in the United States is Fox News. There's no paywall on it. You don't have to log in and watch a podcast. Like you walk in and get your car service, Fox News is playing. You go in and get your teeth cleaned, Fox News is playing. You go, it's just playing everywhere. And so they have been told that there are literally millions, tens of millions of illegal aliens voting in our elections. So the voters, I think, sincerely believe that there's something wrong with the voter rolls. Not all, but a lot of them. So I give those people, I cut them some slack because it's not, this is a conspiracy theory. It's not true, but they sincerely believe it.
They've heard it for years. So eventually it starts to become their reality.
Now the elected officials, Trump, Zinke, they know it's not true.
Yeah.
And they know this is a way to impact or toy with federal elections. They know that. And so that's what they're doing, but they're playing off the sincere beliefs of so many voters. And some of these voters get pretty fired up when you tell them this. They're like, look, they'll tell you, like, there's tens of thousands, there's millions of illegal aliens voting in this election. I'm like, no, there's not. And there's never been, every time any fraud investigation about this is even attempted, it's one person here, two people there out of hundreds of millions. Like, it doesn't even show up on a statistical calculation, but a lot of them do believe it.
And this is the issue in the courts, isn't it? That there really isn't this evidence. And so a lot of these cases are being thrown out. But in reality, doesn't change public opinion if they've been brainwashed over time. And Trump keeps telling them that they're winning. The other kind of the darker aspect of this is the ICE detentions, the arrests, the abductions that we're seeing throughout the country. This, as I understand it, is kind of an ethnic cleansing, but also is connected to elections, because by removing people of color from the streets, it also removes them from being able to vote as well. And
it's an intimidation game. It's really what it is. If it was really, and I'm one who believes in a strong border policy. I'm one who believes in humane immigration enforcement. What we've seen here in Montana, or here in the United States, specifically Minneapolis, that's not responsible law enforcement. That's not humane, any kind of immigration law enforcement. That is domestic terror. All right, they're trying to scare people. If there's about 130,000 undocumented immigrants that live in Minnesota, around Minneapolis. There's 2.3 million in Texas. If you really were focused on numbers, if the Trump administration was really focused on numbers, they would create a sort of e-verify through the businesses that are hiring people, and start in Texas, where there's 2.3 million people, and they would work to humanely deport those folks. Okay, but that's not what's going on in Minneapolis. We send thousands and thousands of masked troops up there who are dressed like they're marching into Fallujah to frighten both immigrants there and citizens, documented citizens, and then obviously kill some of them. This is to instill fear in a population. And I think that was a test run for what they might want to do closer to the elections, because if you ran that sort of operation in big blue cities, I think it would impact voting. How could it not?
Well, if you look at the map of where these ICE raids are taking place, it almost perfectly matches the number of blue states, and how the vote went against Donald Trump in 2020. Yeah. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see what the bigger plan here is.
I think you're absolutely right. I want to give people just a little hope. A place like Montana is like very ardently, kind of stubbornly libertarian in a good sort of blue freedom loving way. For instance, federal ID laws, the real ID law that we're all living with now. If you have a driver's license or a U.S. passport, it's a real ID now. Montana was the last state to say, okay, we'll do it. Because the people here, blue and red, Republican and Democrat, all sorts of neighbors, they don't really like the federal government telling them what to do. Don't really like federal regulatory actions. Don't really like the feds monkeying around in our elections or getting our voter rolls. And so I see this as kind of it's a frightening thing, but it's a unifying thing because so many voters on both sides of the aisle, they're not down with this. They've never been down with it. They live in places like Montana because they don't want to be toyed with. I mean, we love our neighbors. We take care of our neighbors, but, we don't run around passing information to the feds. And so I kind of look at this place as a bulwark against that.
How do we convince these people that regulation is actually there to protect them and support them rather than it be seen as the Republicans brand it as kind of red tape?
So I think that's going on in this election now too. What even lots of Republican voters now see, that runaway, unregulated capitalism in the ways that are being exploited by so many of our billionaires ain't working out good. Okay. Like we don't have healthcare, but we have almost trillionaires, Bezos, Musk, who compete with each other to fly rockets into space on the weekends with their friends.
Yeah.
But we can't have healthcare. And I think people here on both sides of the aisle realize that government regulation, like I got this idea. How about we all band together, form laws that make it better for the mass amounts of people, and so we're not exploited by the very well. Oh, like a government, like regulation, like laws, like we're coming to that point where people of all political stripes realize, wait a second, this is the tool for us to regulate this system so it doesn't get out of round and we don't all get exploited and don't all end up being serfs for 7 trillionaires that own the AI companies.
Yeah. Well, the simplest example is water, clean drinking water.
Yeah.
If you regulate the companies that are providing it to make sure that it is good enough to drink, then, we've seen what's happened in Flint, Michigan, for example. I mean, it's, again, these things should be simple to understand, but the Republican talking points have really kind of rewritten the narrative.
So here's another great example, and it weaves right into water. This is a hot thing that's going to happen in this election. I suspect it's going to be across all states, but it's going to be big in Montana, this data center thing, right?
Yeah.
These billionaires, these $1 trillion companies, OpenAI, Musk company, other companies want to build these huge data centers in places like Montana for 2 reasons. They want to exploit relatively cheap power, cheap compared to California or wherever. And we have these things called rivers here that have water in them, and they need the water to cool these huge data centers. Well, if you want to take a couple things that piss people off, tell them that their power prices are going to double so that these guys can become multi-trillionaires instead of just trillionaires. And oh, by the way, the very reason we live here, our rivers, our streams, our lakes, they're going to exploit or poison those so that they can cool these things. And this is like an 85% issue. Republicans, Democrats, they hate the idea of this. So right back to clean water for recreation, water for our wildlife and fisheries, water for the tourist economy. That's being exploited here by these data centers and trillion dollar AI companies. And people ain't down with it. I mean, it's going to be a motivating thing.
We have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about jobs because data centers kind of really changes that storyline as well. We'll do that next here on The Weekend Show. Starting something new isn't just hard, it's terrifying. So much work goes into this thing that you're not entirely sure will work out, and it can be hard to make that leap of faith. Trust me, I know. When I started this podcast, I wasn't even sure what I was doing. What if no one listens? What if I make a fool of myself? Now I know that I was right in launching my podcast, despite all the fears and hesitations. It also helps when you have a partner like Shopify on your side to help. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names to brands that are just getting started. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world? It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/weekend. Go to shopify.com/weekend. That's shopify.com/weekend. We're back with Ryan Busse here on The Weekend Show. I'm Anthony Davis. Ryan, just before the break, we talked about data centers. It seems that the only growth that the US is going to see is the investment of billionaires in AI and data centers, which might need a small construction team to build, but once they're built, they don't really need any humans to operate, maybe a security guard. I mean, that is not a way to bring jobs back into America, is it? And how is that going to affect the people that you're appealing to in your run for Congress?
Well, these are decisions that are in front of us. Look, a lot of places, including the town that I live in, said yes to an Amazon warehouse not too long ago. And we had politicians line up to give tax credits and cut ribbons and give high fives and hugs saying, oh gosh, thanks, Bezos, for bringing this Amazon warehouse here that puts the very nature of which puts local businesses out of business.
Yeah.
And then after they're here a year and a half, and after we've given them all the tax credits, and after they've been lauded as this new modern thing, what does Bezos announce a few months ago? Oh, they're all going to be run by robotics.
Yeah.
So the few dozen people that would have worked there aren't even going to work there anymore. I think it's that on steroids for these data centers. Yes, a few people, and I'm for construction jobs. I wish we had more of them. But for a short-term gain of these construction jobs, we're then going to, what does AI do? It's to replace human labor. That's what the very nature of the product of the thing that is going to be coming out of these data centers is for. We're already seeing it, right? Entry-level jobs in so many industries, law firms, accounting firms, all these places that are being hit first by AI.
Right.
It's just going to continue to accelerate. So these are big questions. We should ask ourselves what kind of country we want to be. Obviously, there's going to be some AI, but do we want to be exploited by it? Do we want to have it literally rototill our towns and our businesses? Seems to me this is a choice we can make or not. And I think this election is going to be is going to be focused a lot on those sorts of big questions.
Are Democrats talking enough about the significance of this? Because
No.
I don't think people really understand the half of it. This is literally going to obliterate most traditional working in so many ways, not least robotics and automation, but artificial intelligence for customer service and anything like that. We are getting to a point where really Democrats need to be talking about universal basic income and alternatives to the traditional ways of earning a living.
I think, to your point, I'm running as a Democrat. I believe in the values of the Democratic Party, but there's a lot of problems with the way Democrats have executed government, the way individual Democrats, especially national Democrats on the stage, have been influenced by big corporations, by lobbying checks, by payoffs, by stock trading. Just look at our healthcare system. Come on. The reason we don't have the sort of healthcare system we should is because essentially big insurance lobbies here in this country that make, by the way, this sounds crazy to other countries, and it should sound crazy, but the health insurance industry in the United States profits, pure profit, after they've paid bajillions of dollars for lobbying, after they've paid tremendous, obscene bonuses to these executives that make tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. After all that, the insurance industry here profits $71.4 billion a year. And every penny of that is made to slow down healthcare. Because how does a insurance company profit? It profits by regulating care and then rationing the payments. So the industry is built on slowing down healthcare, not speeding it up. And it's profiting $71.4 billion a year. Way too many Democrats have their hand in that till. That's why we haven't. I mean, I think that's a big reason why we haven't executed the kind of healthcare system that we should. And I'm telling you right now, if I get back there, I've got just as sharp elbows for those Democrats as I do for the Republicans, maybe sharper, because the Democrats promised to fix this shit and they didn't. So they should be held to a higher account. On the data centers, I think it's the same thing. NVIDIA looks pretty inviting, stock price looks pretty good. These 7 companies that are driving stock prices in this country, essentially we have 2 stock markets. We got 7 companies driving 45% of the stock prices in this country. That's all AI driven. And way too many Democrats are sucking up to that thing too. And so Democrats need to stand up for people, for working people, for the people who live in towns and own stores, a lot more than they do. I mean, I think these billionaire companies, these trillionaires, they got lobbyists, they got attorneys, they got lots of representation. Like, who's representing the people? So, I mean, that's why I'm running. I think people feel that, and both sides of the aisle feel that. They're angry. I think that's why one of the reasons Trump is where he is. He's not executing on anything, and he's making it way worse for people. But the frustration he tapped into is a lot of the same that I just described.
The leadership vacuum in the kind of National Democratic Party is a real issue right now, isn't it? People have been very critical of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the way that they've handled things. I mean, what needs to change there? I mean, I've often described that really it would be great if all the Democratic governors came together and formed some kind of Avengers-style team and gave weekly press conferences, like just change the rules of the game, because the rules have changed. And it needs to be different in order for people to recognize that they are represented by people who really do care, unlike the Republicans who are just feeding themselves.
You know what I've been telling people, ask me like what needs to change and like how bad is it? And I say, well, you can tell things are wrong if you just ask yourself, if a Democrat gets up and says something in front of a mic, like we're in an existential crisis and working people can't afford a home and it's a disaster and people are hurting because they can't afford health care and our economy is going to crash if we don't fix it. Ask yourself if in the next 5 minutes they actually act like they believe that. Because if you say those things and you really believe them, man, you would snap too. Yeah. You would break some china. You would crack some skulls. You would throw some elbows. You would get pissed off. But that's not what most Democrats do. They go back to having a cocktail party and no wonder people are disenfranchised with that, because if there's one thing the average person can understand, it's fakeness, right? If they run over, if your neighbor runs over to you and says their house is on fire, but then they're like, well, let's hang around and have a drink. It's not real urgent. Well, you're like, okay, like that dude's probably faking it. And I think voters feel that kind of fakeness, and Democrats, that they say these crises exist, but they don't act like they exist. That pisses people off, and it should piss people off. So I would like to see Democrats just start acting like they believe what they just said. Just a simple low bar. Just start acting like it.
Does it make it much harder for you as a candidate for Congress when the central leadership is not up to standard?
Well, yeah, I think because what it's done is it's destroyed a lot of people's faith in their government. And we now have a lot of voters who are cynical, who don't want to participate, who don't believe anything. And when they don't believe anything, news outlets like Fox News can pump stuff that's false to them because they now don't believe anything. So yeah, it's hard. We're in a tough spot because we've destroyed some of the trust with voters that we should have. And that didn't just happen. That didn't happen to us. It wasn't like a hailstorm that came from out of nowhere. Too many Democrats did that to ourselves. We've destroyed the trust. But when people tell me, they ask me kind of what you're getting at, which is like, is there a problem with the Democratic Party and what do we do about it? I'm like, yes, there is. And what we do about it is people who care, like me, get in and decide to frickin' fix it. Like, I'm not going to just allow it to be that way. And it's not an intractable thing. This is a system that we made, and this is a system we can unmake. It's not a law of physics. And so I just think people like me who care enough about this to do it should get in and change it instead of just bitching about the way it is.
You talked about your proximity to Canada. Let's just talk about Canada at the moment and how important it is to you guys locally, but also to America as a whole, because Canada is trying to find a way around working with the US where possible, not least with these threat of tariffs. There's an argument over this bridge now. Canada is now also seeking security guarantees from Europe and making new relationships there. Is that the answer, just to circumnavigate the United States completely and find new allies?
Well, here's this is a complex thing, and it's an emotional thing for me because I live 50 miles from Canada, and so many of my dear friends are Canadians. And for those who haven't experienced the Canadian culture, if there's a more fun-loving, beer-drinking, happy-go-lucky bunch of people than Canadians, I ain't ever seen. Maybe the Aussies are, but the Canadians are fantastic people. So if you have pissed off the Canadians, man, you have really accomplished something. Like, that took something. And so it's a sad thing for me to hear from my neighbors that they don't want to come down here, and from my friends that they don't want to come down here. I still hope they'll have us up there. For Montana, it's a particularly dangerous, onerous kind of thing that's happening. So Montana is a huge agricultural state. Lots of wheat, lots of barley, lots of cattle are grown here. And much of the important fertilizer that is used on most of our most important crops, there's one source for it: Canada. So these tariffs are killing producers here because of their input costs are going up. Of course, the tariffs are killing the markets for so many of our crops, but the input costs for so many of these farmers are being driven through the roof because they need to buy Canadian fertilizer and they can't buy it. So in the western part of the state, we rely on tourism. Tons of our economy is based on tourism and public lands. This is a bit of a funny statistic and story, but it's true. One of my really good friends lives just below our house here. His house is just below ours on the road here. And he owns a liquor store here in town, one of the liquor stores. Well, anybody who knows Canadians who they're going on a little holiday, one of the first things they do is whip into the liquor store and get some adult sparkling beverage for the weekend. Well, his business is down. Guess how much? Exactly the amount that Canadian tourism is down, 18 to 20%. Yeah. Restaurants here in town down 18 to 20%. Exactly the same amount that Canadian tourism is down. Why are we doing that? What I must have missed the memo where the Canadians attacked us, where Mark Carney said some bad, this is needless. There's no reason for it to happen. And Americans, particularly Montanans, are pissed off about this. And all the Republicans can do, including the guy I'm running against, is just look at Donald Trump and say, yes, sir. And so one of the things that I've pointed out to people here is, in our government, we're supposed to have representative government. The job I'm running for is called U.S. Rep, U.S. Representative. It's supposed to represent people. Well, the people of Western Montana don't have representative. I mean, Ryan Zinke, this guy I'm running against, he's representing something, but he ain't representing farmers. He's not representing my buddy who owns a liquor store. He's not representing the people I told you about who need health care. He's not representing my 21-year-old son who needs a house. Like, if you're a big healthcare company, or you're Elon Musk or one of these people, you got a representative, but all the rest of the people don't. And that's what has people so pissed off here. It's what is degrading our political system. We've got to fix it.
Let's talk about your experience in the firearms industry. There was a mass shooting in Canada last week, very unusual, and obviously that has brought the conversation back up again. How much does the Second Amendment going to feature in conversations that you're having with people? Because the thing is, there's so many issues now, not least healthcare and education and goodness knows cost of living, obviously. So where do these kind of traditional talking points and hot button issues, as they used to be called, where do they feature now?
So I would have said none. I don't think, 67.5% of Montanans own a gun. Most of us hunt and shoot or protect ourselves with them. It's more of a cultural glue than it is a issue here. I would have said none, except for the Trump administration has seen fit in the last 3 weeks since Minneapolis to essentially decree that we no longer have a Second Amendment. So the Second Amendment issues may play in this, but they're coming from the right, not from the left. Trump said that you can't just have it. You can't just walk into some sort of protest with a gun. That's news to 67.5% of Montanans who were told that responsible gun ownership was their right and they could carry it where they wanted to. Pam Bondi reinforced that. Kash Patel, FBI director, reinforced that. So I think the Second Amendment may come into play because people finally understand much about, like what I warned about in my book, that these people really are not about freedoms. They're about using guns for power over people. They see gun ownership as that ICE agent with the gun ready to take your rights from you as a citizen, not me as a citizen with rights. Their idea of gun ownership is that Fallujah-looking ICE agent ready to just strip anybody, like not just your right to free speech, your right to life, as in Alex Preddy, or the 37-year-old mom who was shot by these guys. I think people are finally realizing that this administration is threatening our very fundamental freedoms: speech, assembly, protest, Fourth Amendment rights, search and seizure rights, and even Second Amendment rights. So I would have said 6 months ago, I would have said none. Now I'm not so sure because I think it's like an existential thing now.
Alex Pretty came to the protest to effectively as a watcher, to keep an eye out. He was an ICU nurse at the VA. He went to help a woman who was being pushed. He was wearing a firearm with a concealed license on his back at the 6 o'clock position in a closed and sealed holster. He wasn't brandishing it as Trump and Bondi suggested. How do you feel before he was executed and shot multiple times at close range? Mm-hmm. How did you feel when you heard Kristi Noem and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance just lying outright about what people saw with their own eyes on that videotape?
I was infuriated. I was pissed off because Pretty, I'm a gun owner. My kids are gun owners. My father is a gun owner. My friends are gun owners. And I see us as the kind of gun owner that Alex Pretty is or was. He did everything 100% by the book. He purchased that gun legally. He was carrying it responsibly, never thought about brandishing it. And he was killed because he was carrying a gun. Make no mistake about it. He was killed. And then his Second Amendment rights, he was blamed. Those Second Amendment rights were blamed or threatened for him being killed. And that should infuriate every single gun owner. What's crazy about what happened to Pretty is he was literally doing the exact thing that the NRA has been telling people to do and to prepare for 55 years. Stand up against governmental tyranny. That's what he was doing. He felt that a federal government tyranny force, totalitarian force was in his city, and he was there trying to help people against that government. They have been told to carry responsibly. That's what he was doing. Been told to train. He did. Been told to follow the laws. He did. Been told to properly permit. He did. He did everything by the book, and they still killed him. So I think gun owners across the nation were like, oh shit, this wasn't about freedom ever, was it? These people see gun ownership in ICE agents owning guns against us, not us owning guns against the government. I think it's a real wake-up call.
And something that people didn't really talk about at the time was the fact that Alex Pretty went to that protest knowing that Renee Good had been executed just 2.5 weeks earlier. Yeah. Of course he was going to bring his firearm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he did. He was attacked. I can't really overemphasize how shocking the attacks from Trump and the administration were to gun owners, because he literally did exactly what gun owners have been told to do hundreds of thousands of times. Keep an eye on your government, use your gun to protect yourself. Yeah, he did everything perfectly. And so for them to say, you can't do that, you can't exercise your rights, you can't, as Trump said, you can't just walk in with a gun, you can't do that. Again, that is news to not to left of center people like me, to all the right of center people who believed that what Trump stood for was like protecting freedoms. No, he doesn't. I think right there in that moment and in the hours that follow, as they attacked him for his gun ownership, the mask, like the scales fell from people's eyes. The mask came off, whatever analogy you want to use. People realized right then that that the way MAGA has tapped into gun ownership and gun usage and gun radicalization was so that a totalitarian government could control people, not so that people could control their government. I realize it's backwards.
I want to dig into that a little bit more with you and talk about the training of ICE agents as well. We'll take another quick break and we'll do that next here on The Weekend Show. Cold days, big goals, no time to cook. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So eat well without planning or cooking. Quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. Meals that fit your goals and schedule. Healthier eating, calorie management, and more protein. Choose from 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things fresh and delicious through winter. Options include high-protein, calorie-smart Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, and ready-to-eat salads. Plus, the new Muscle Pro collection supports strength and recovery. Factor is always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. Head to factormeals.com/weekend50off and use code weekend50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast per box for 1 year while subscription is active. I didn't realize how much a mattress could change my nights until I switched to my Lisa. It has a soft, upscale feel that genuinely makes me look forward to bedtime. If you've ever slept on a mattress that feels like it was designed exactly for you, then you've come to the right place. I love how intentional and sustainable the materials of the Lisa mattress feel. The thing I love most about my Lisa is how effortlessly it blends elegance and precision. I get that soft, calming sink-in moment, but the support is tailored so perfectly to my sleep habits that I wake up feeling so aligned. Lisa has a lineup of beautifully crafted mattresses tailored to how you sleep. Each mattress is designed with specific sleep positions and feel preferences in mind. Lisa isn't just about sleep, it's about impact. They donate thousands of mattresses each year to those in need, while also partnering with organizations like Clean Hub to help remove harmful plastic waste from our oceans. Go to lisa.com for 30% off mattresses, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code WEEKEND exclusive for our listeners. That's LEESA.com, promo code WEEKEND for 30% off mattresses, plus an extra $50 off. Support our show and let them know that we sent you after checkout. That's lisa.com, promo code WEEKEND. We're back on The Weekend Show with Ryan Busse. I'm Anthony Davis. Ryan, with your experience in the firearms industry, we were talking just before the break about the ICE agents and the murder of Alex Pretty and Renee Good, not to mention the other dozen people that have died in ICE custody. Donald Trump picked a number of 47 for the number of days that these people should be trained when joining ICE. Some are getting huge bonuses. They're getting debt relief. They are being put on the job pretty quickly. The bill that Trump signed put a huge amount of money into investing in this kind of Gestapo-style paramilitary force, which kind of is becoming more and more like the Wagner group in Russia. It really is Trump's private army. We've seen what happens when these individuals are given the instruction to use whatever force they like and that they have immunity from prosecution. How bad is this going to get once these additional 10,000 troops come online and these vast warehouses that Trump is buying as detention centers open up? I mean, where is this headed and what should we be talking about in the meantime?
I hate to tell people this, but you ain't seen nothing yet. I want people to understand the sort of scale of force that's being built and what's going to descend upon United States cities. The total DHS ICE budget is $191 billion. $191 billion is more than the U.S. Marine Corps. It's more than all but 14 militaries on the face of the earth. Tens of thousands of ICE agents are going to be hired. Many of us who have been in and around the gun industry or law enforcement, we know what sorts of folks are being targeted for this sort of job now. Everybody can see Alex Preddy being killed. Everybody can see these ICE agents intimidating people, taking joy from breaking out windows of cars and yanking people out of cars and zip tying kids in classes. And if you're still attracted to that, I'm warning people, you ain't seen, there's going to be more Alex Preddys. There's going to be way more kids that are separated from their parents, and like the sort of inhumaneness that we have seen over the last few months, there's a lot more of it coming. And the only reason it's happening, two reasons. The Congress decided I can't hardly say these words, but the big, beautiful bill, probably the most consequential thing in there besides the massive upward shift in wealth in the way that taxes were shifted in there. The most consequential thing in there is this funding of DHS and ICE. We're going to have detention centers all over the country. You're going to have, instead of just Minneapolis facing this, there might be 10 or 12 cities facing it. The only way to stop this is to retake the Congress in 2026 and to have Congress do what it's supposed to do, exercise its oversight to slow down the administration. If you don't, you better buy a couple extra locks for your door, for your car, and for your house, because the shit is going to get thick. It really is.
They've been advertising for recruits at gun shows, at kind of far-right events, and many of these individuals are kind of, they think of themselves as vigilantes or freedom fighters. They want to actually be violent, and many of them have criminal records.
We call them couch commandos in the industry, right? These are people that sat on their couch with their rifle, playing video games, Call of Duty or whatever, dreaming of the day that they get to go out there, put on a badge, take their gun, and own the libs. That's what happened in Minneapolis. That's what happened. Watch that guy kill Renee Good. I mean, it's horrific to see. But that guy, hair trigger, I mean, if he had been trained, come on. No law enforcement officer is trained to do that. You're trained to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Just all you have to know is these people are told to march into towns with masks on. No responsible law enforcement officer has to wear a mask. All you're telling people when you do that is, hey, I'm marching into your town. I'm about ready to do some stuff that I do not want to be held to account for. Otherwise, why are you wearing a mask? People know that. American citizens, even lots of people on the right realize, I don't think that mask thing is cool. It's not cool. There's going to be a lot more of this, and they're spending the marketing recruiting campaign you're talking about. There's an excellent Washington Post story, might be one of the last before Washington Post goes down the toilet. But there's an excellent Washington Post story. They're spending $100 million on that recruiting effort you just talked about. 100 million. They're using AI to find people who have responded to some of the most vitriolic right-wing stuff on the internet, and then they're recruiting them using AI. 100 million bucks. So we know the kind of people they're recruiting, and I'm sure there are good people in ICE. I don't mean to castigate them all, but the sort of people they're overtly recruiting should frighten the hell out of everybody.
The irony is that the two individuals that shot Renee Good and Alex Preddy were actually veterans of the Border Force and ICE.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we square that? Is it the case that a lot of people in uniform are very right-wing, and I mean the guy who shot and killed Renee Good referred to her as an effing bitch after her car kind of veered into that other vehicle. I mean, these are dark times, but these individuals are evil flows through their veins.
Well, real important on the Preddy thing, those were Border Patrol agents. They weren't technically ICE agents. And the reason that's important is because those Border Patrol agents have been trained in a different kind of law enforcement activity where almost everything they see every day is assumed to be illegal. They're on high alert. They are kind of like soldiers. They're supposed, I mean, there ain't no border around Minneapolis, but those guys were trained to be on a border somewhere dealing with everyday border incursions, almost like a military operation. ICE and immigration control is supposed to be a sort of community operation where you work with schools, you work with businesses, you don't march in with 30 officers, you don't show up. There's that famous picture of 7 officers tacticaled up like they're in Iraq, banging on some lady's door and then pulling people out. You don't do that. You're more part of the community. And so, the fact is that they took these Border Patrol people and made them into law enforcement people, and that's not what they're trained for.
Greg Bovino, who has supposedly now been taken off the job, but relocated, actually congratulated one of these officers for shooting somebody half a dozen times.
Yeah,
and we've seen, with the kind of Nazi style coat, and I mean these moments that we are kind of piecing together. They're not by accident. They are by design. He does want us to think that he is a kind of, Nazi operative.
Oh, he loves it. I mean, look at this guy. He's got the trench coat.
Yeah.
He's got the haircut. He basically goose steps around. He all but does the Nazi salute when people walk up to him. I mean, I think he really wants to. He just controls himself a little bit. There's a really interesting story. I'm here in Montana, and I want to tell you about this because it has to do with ICE. It has to do with border, and it has to do with where I think we are in the election. There's this little town in northeast Montana. It's called Floyd, Montana, F-O-R-I-D, Montana. There's 195 people that live there. Okay, about 12 years ago, an undocumented guy comes to Floyd, becomes a great citizen, starts a diesel repair shop. He's the only diesel mechanic for 200 miles. He has 5 kids. Kids in little towns in Montana they're regarded and well loved everywhere, but in little towns in Montana that barely have enough kids to field sports teams or have a school, you have a family of 5 kids, a good family of 5 kids, like that's a popular family. So instead of spending our federal resources on healthcare, on all the myriad of problems that every single person's worried about, what has DHS and ICE and Montana been spending their time on? They decided to get this entire basically military force to Floyd, Montana, where this one guy who's a diesel mechanic, they surround him. They have their big Jeeps, all their guns, everything. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars so they can capture this guy. And they're deporting him, and he's in a detention center right now. The entire town is now up in arms. What's scary is the majority of those people who are up in arms and love this family. The sports team now in Floyd, Montana, are wearing the name of this guy on their back. 4 of his kids are still in school. They're highly, highly regarded, loved. People have traveled 600 miles to try to get him out of the detention center. All these, might as well just say it. It's all these white folks in Floyd trying to save this guy. My point here is that these people say, we did not vote for this. Lots of Montanans feel that we did not vote for this. We did not vote for healthcare to get worse. We did not vote for this. Now, technically, if you voted for Trump, technically you did. But in their mind, they did not vote for this. And I think this is such an illustrative thing because people really who did vote for Donald Trump, most of them really didn't vote for, and I air quote it here, this, right? This meaning healthcare that got worse. This meaning tariffs that drove our grocery prices up. This meaning diesel mechanics from Floyd, Montana. These people in Floyd are pissed. They have to drive to Williston, North Dakota, 200 miles to get their trucks worked on now because their diesel mechanic's gone. Like that's the sort of impact. And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars like marching this guy out of Floyd instead of taking care of healthcare somewhere. People really didn't vote for that. I know there's going to be people watching this, liberal folks who, get angry and beat the table and say, bullshit, they did vote for this. But they really didn't.
But they were lied to, Ryan, weren't they? I mean, that's really what we're dealing with here. And so it is difficult to kind of blame people when they are in that Fox News ecosystem. Yeah,
I guess, as dark as this is, as frustrating as it can be for voters on both sides, I just want people to absorb that a little bit, that these people did not vote for this stuff. And Democrats have an opportunity now to stand up and be an affirmative answer to that. We have to fix some problems, and we have to be forthright with people. We have to pull no punches. We have to say what we believe. I hope people can see, like, that's what I'm all about. But the truth is that these policies and the way they're being instituted, all of them, I'm just using the Freud example as an immigration. And by the way, Freud's only 30 miles from the Canadian border, so I guess technically it's a border thing, but it's not the kind of border thing that most people think of. People really didn't vote for that. That's what this 26 election is going to be about. Not just the particular immigration thing, but the whole idea of independent and swing and soft Republican voters really didn't vote for this crap that they're having to deal with.
But with a two-party system, it is a long walk from one side of the house to the other, isn't it? And so what are the chances that these people who do feel aggrieved because they don't agree with the Nazification of border force activities, that they're actually going to say, okay, we're going to vote Democrat this time? So
I think the branding, the successful deleterious branding of the Democratic Party has been pretty dang effective, right? To your point, it's a long walk from one side of the house to the other. That's why I think people like me have to run. And I believe deeply in all the stuff we've talked about here today, but I do not code as this sort of boogeyman Democrat that people have been warned about on Fox News, right? I mean, if I was, it would look like I had, I don't know, I'd be some kind of alien with purple hair. I don't even know what they think, but I'm this big white dude who drives a truck, who owns lots of guns and believes in making people's lives better. Like that's not what the Fox News crowd has been told Democrats are all about. I think it's important in this election to make that walk from one side of the house that you described to the other easier by making sure that we run people who are of the district, who look like the place they're trying to represent, who don't frighten people by giving, like the culture warring from the right, from MAGA, is pretty effective if you give it a place to hold on to. Like I say that Republicans are pretty good at setting culture war traps and Democrats have been pretty good at stepping in them. We should stay away from those traps and focus on the stuff that people care about.
The Democrats have blocked the funding bill to keep the Department of Homeland Security open, which means that there's effectively a government shutdown, with the stopgap expiring on Friday. Do you think that's going to make the difference? Because, I mean, the list of demands from Democrats, in my opinion, didn't really go far enough. It was, we want to see people's faces and things, but it still played into this kind of Trump desire to ethnically cleanse America and not have people of color around. He is a white supremacist. This is a white supremacist movement. Some describe it as a Nazi movement. I mean, Elon Musk has posted about race every single day for the last 3 months. This is what we're dealing with.
So I think this is another place where Democrats go back to what we talked about earlier in this podcast. If Democrats really believe all these existential crises exist, then they should govern like that. Then when there are buttons to push, when there's leverage to be levered, whatever it is, they should do it, because voters see Donald Trump and think, well, he must really believe that. He's willing to burn down the whole thing to get it done. And there is a weird subconscious message that's sent to voters that, man, there must be some validity to that. He will fight for it. Most time Democrats are like, this is really bad. And they're like, I give up. And voters are like, shit, they didn't believe that. So if we really believe this stuff is existential, if Democrats do, then be smart about these shutdowns. We don't want to harm people. But if we really believe it, we better start pulling the levers like we act like it, like we believe it.
Okay. We have to finish, but I'm grateful to you, Ryan. I wish you all the very best with your campaign. Where can people find you and support you?
So I'd love your support. I know it's surprising, but the Republicans have a lot of money, so they're going to call me a lot of names. We're up 4. We're super happy and excited because our polling has us up 4 in this race. But beating Zinke is going to be tough. It's going to take a lot of money, and I'd love for anything you can do to support us. It's at busseformontana.com, BUSSEFOR, Montana spelled out.com. Everything's there, and we'd love anything you can help us with.
Very grateful to you and wish you all the best with it. And hopefully you'll come back and give us some good news in a little while.
Okay. I'd love to. Anytime.
I'm Anthony Davis. Don't forget to support me and independent journalism at patreon.com/5Minute News, or you can find me on Substack at The Anthony Davis. You can also join the 5 Minute News YouTube channel. I'll come back next Sunday with a brand new special guest and more factual news to discuss on the 5 Minute News Weekend Show with Midas Touch.